Hello, and welcome back to Purple Digitalis. Some of you might be thinking, hey, what the heck is Purple Digitalis? What is Dr. Kell doing here? What the heck is going on? In case you didn't know, earlier this year, I ended up going and learning how to use Unreal Engine. This was mainly due to me having a long-time dream of being a game developer. And this was the product. This was the outcome. I wouldn't say it's much of a product, it's a bit of just a tech demo, but in terms of being a tech demo, I'd say it was pretty good. So I decided today I would go ahead and revisit it. I think this might be one of the last videos that I upload in the batch that I'm making up right now, so that you can kind of see what I've been doing in my spare time. And at the end of the video, I'm actually going to be showing off what I've been working on. So without any further ado, let us begin. All right, so immediately I wanted to showcase, number one is obviously the camera system. It's based around multiple spring arms. Essentially, after the first demo, I realized basically the camera was getting caught on everything and it was super confusing and super jarring and it was just annoying to deal with. So in general, I just decided make the camera a lot smoother. And yeah, I think what I ended up making here is a lot better. Immediately, this is the room that you spawn in, and if you look up, you can actually see there's essentially a purple sky with this purple fog effect. If I turn around, you can actually see it a little bit more clearly in that hallway. That was actually a thing that was added in really close to after I made my video originally. I started playing around with the post-processing effects and weather effects and sky effects and whatnot. And what I came up with was, well, this. Just a very unique visual to it that I really liked, and it kind of defined the whole game, if I'm being honest. Now, I'm saying game like this is a full thing. It obviously is not. This is just a little tech demo. One thing I do plan on doing in the future is actually going back and revisiting this project and making it into a full project. There's a lot of things that I learned from doing this. There's a lot of things that I have ideas for. There's an entire story idea. But the problem is right now, I'm a new developer, and people aren't really going to want to make a 3D platformer, especially one that is as experimental as this. So immediately when you spawn in, you'll actually be facing in this general direction. Now, this little sphere right here is uninteractable, and that is denoted by the weird glassy texture. Oh, that is actually a lumen property right there. Now, I can actually turn it off. I actually have in future projects, but again, more on that later. But anyways, the idea is that this is important, and I really wanted to showcase that fact. So in this case, in order to draw your attention to where you need to go, you'll actually notice this cable. This cable is made up using an actual plugin using Unreal Engine that some of you might actually recognize from Voices of the Void. Voices of the Void ended up using this cable for all the power lines and everything, and it's actually a very good tool. It's actually very easy to use, and it's actually very nice. I really like this thing. It makes it look really good. Problem is, it can be a little bit much in terms of performance, since this is technically a physics object. Each one of these lengths of cable is a physics object, which means that, yes, it is a little annoying to use. Anyways, we're just going to go ahead and move right on in here. And one thing you'll notice is the music. Now, there's some interesting quirks about how Unreal Engine handles music. And the main thing of note is how the music itself is, well, it only really loads in when you can hear it, which is a problem whenever your music is localized entirely around these white circles. Yes, these are actually audio devices, and if we wait long enough, you can actually hear the music start up. I actually went through a few different options with regards to the music. I used the Portal 2 soundtrack at one point. I looked around for the Zelda soundtrack. What I ended up settling on was actually the Minecraft soundtrack, specifically the song Rubidoux, which is meant to be one of the Nether themes. It really does get this really empty, kind of foggy netherworld vibe that I really wanted to go with for this game. Unfortunately, though, because of that, I don't think I can actually, publish this in any official regard, since this is using copywritten material, which is part of the reason why I kept the thing private. So we're gonna go ahead and do our first little bit of platforming. Space is your jump. There's also a fairly low amount of aerial control, which of course means that you have to dedicate yourself to a jump. That's something that I learned pretty early on, but it's not the only thing that you can do. If you fall, you'll actually notice there's this little line that is being projected in front of you. That is a ledge grab. So unfortunately, there's basically a bunch of invisible boxes where I allow you to use the ledge grab ability, which is a little unfortunate. Yeah, basically you can just ledge grab onto whatever you want, as long as, you know, that one line detects stuff. And right there, you actually saw me use a Mega Blast. Basically, when you crouch, you are activating the Mega Blast clutch, is the idea. And then you can press space, and you can do a high jump. So for example, instead of having to do that little platforming challenge, because you can do this entire platforming challenge with just regular jumps. Meanwhile, if you do a Mega Blast, you can just immediately go right on up here. The other notable feature is, of course, the double jump. See, you're using blasts in order to jump around, is the idea. So I wanted to have the player be able to use those blasts in whatever way they saw fit. And it was mainly inspired by Bakugo from My Hero Academia. So one thing I wanted to do was, well, do his little speed technique. So if you're in the air and you do a blast jump, or Mega Blast I should say, you will just send yourself propelling forward. And this, combined with a few other little bits of code that basically maintains your momentum and maintains your velocity and lowers your friction and whatnot, makes it... Let's try that again. This, combined with all the lowering of friction and upping your velocity and whatnot rapidly, means that you can actually do speedrun techniques. And it's really satisfying. It's really fun to be able to just do this. If you played Warframe, which I'm assuming most of y'all have, because most people on my channel now apparently just watch me for Warframe stuff. Yeah, there was Voices of the Void stuff, but also, there's Warframe stuff now. It feels a lot like bullet jumping in its own way. And I'm proud of myself for making that. So anyways, let's go ahead and go up here and introduce you to the other thing. See, the character in question, player, had this little pickaxe was the idea, and the pickaxe would be used in order to basically be a weapon. So if you left click, you may notice, if you watched the last video I made on this, that the little line trace seems different. And that's because I'm no longer using a line trace. I'm actually using a sphere trace, and that is due to, well, the line trace is going so fast that it would actually not be able to hit everything if you accidentally moved in a weird way. So doing a sphere trace made it a lot easier to hit stuff. That's literally the only reason. But another reason that you might end up wanting to do that is because of the wall latch. I don't know why, but I really love the idea of being able to latch onto any wall using the pickaxe and being able to climb up it. It just felt like a really interesting idea. So what I did was I made it so you can do exactly that. You can only do it one time per blast jump, meaning that when you're on the ground, you can do it no problem. But if I try to do it again now, that example, if you do it from the ground, you can grab onto the wall, and then if I go to do it again, it doesn't work. Meanwhile, if I go to grab onto the wall, and then I go and blast jump, I can do it again. You'll also notice that your character is facing away. Player is facing away from the wall at this time, and that is because of one little feature. You are able to latch onto the wall, hold down your crouch button, and launch. It feels really good to be able to move like this. I can't explain it in any other way, other than it just feels really good to control. You'll also notice there's these spheres that keep appearing underneath me, behind me, wherever in the world it decides to be. Well, I also had, at one point pretty early on, I had what was known as a front blast, an air brake. And the main reason for that was because the Mega Blast was a lot more unruly back in the day. But I made sure to make it a lot more tight, a lot more grippy, just because that's what I preferred. So it really just left the front blast kind of to be a pointless mechanic, right? Well, if it's an explosion, wouldn't it make sense then that said explosion would also be able to deal damage? And that's what's going on here. Each of these spheres are actually just explosions. And each one is positioned very differently. You'll notice if I do a vertical Mega Blast, there's a sphere around my feet that is very large. If I do one forward, then there's a sphere behind me that is very large. If I do just a regular double jump, it's a small blast. If I do a right click, then it is that. Or an air brake, or a front blast, or whatever you want to call it. Because I never came up with an actual term. And the game isn't going to be releasing anytime soon, so I have no idea, and things are going to change. And honestly, I think that's really most of the moveset that is in the game. So at this point, I have shown you pretty much the entire moveset of player. So anyways, if we go through here, following the cable some more, we enter the central room. Along this room, there are multiple doorways and our first unique mechanic. Water. Believe it or not, as a robot, you do not actually drown in water. Instead, you are completely immune to it. The only difference is that my blasts are no longer available to me. If I try to use my forward blast, if I try to Mega Blast, if I try to forward Mega Blast, the point is, you cannot blast while you are wet. So anyways, go up here, and there's this little thing here that looks like the hit switch that we hit earlier. So if we hit this, we set our respawn point. This is just in case you end up dying somewhere along the lines and you need to, return back here. Well, there you go. You have it. So anyways, if we turn around, you can barely see up there, kind of framed by all the cables and whatnot, you can see a hit switch. There is actually a way to get up there without having to do the full dungeon. This was made in response to playtesting, where originally, the only way to move these blocks around was by shoving your face into it until eventually it moved. That is unintuitive and problematic as fuck. So instead, I had to go through the painstaking effort of basically locking the position of this block to the player and then somehow dividing it by the velocity of the player so that it moves perfectly in sync with the player. It was a lot of effort, and I absolutely went crazy trying to make it. But you know what? I made it. I'm very happy with how it came out, and it actually gave me some ideas for the future. And now begins the Zelda-like aspect of the game. You have explored exactly one path already, and there lies 3 paths to go. Oh, this room right here, I think would represent a really good talking point in regards to the idea of the game. The purple fog gave me this idea of a world that was essentially taken over by a toxic smog, and so the character you play as is a robot, one of the few things that can survive in that toxic smog. Every environment that you would visit would be dead. It would be empty, devoid of all life. The only life being, well, robots like yourself, which is not exactly life. It gave this very bleak, very, dark idea for a world, and I ran with it. I love this idea. The idea of a world so densely, just densely packed with smog and death that it choked the very life out of it. And it was such a cool idea, and I want to see it done more. And that's what I plan on doing. Eventually, I do want to revisit this game, like I said. The spinning cube. Can't run into it. So if you attack it, myhouse.wad music begins, and you are told to return to the entrance. There's a wall here now. There obviously wasn't a wall here before, and now you have to find your way back. Hope you were paying attention to the level, because there's a couple ways that you can get back. And so, whenever you actually do manage to get past that one little hurdle that you have right there, you're able to then go on, just keep proceeding onwards, keep going back to the beginning of the level, and the sphere is now solid, and you can interact with it. Congratulations, you have now beaten my game. Go home. You don't win anything. No, but seriously, I am very proud of how a lot of this came out. There's a number of gimmicks that were really challenging to create, especially as someone who has never used Unreal Engine. Keep in mind, when I created my video at the beginning of the year, I literally only had 1 week of experience. And I've created this over the course of 2 months after that video. I'm very proud of myself for that. And you know what? Like I said, Purple Digitalis is not exactly going to be, well, it's not going to be worked on for a while yet. 3D platformers aren't exactly very popular, and definitely if I'm trying to get, attention drawn to me as a game developer, making a 3D platformer isn't going to be the best option. So what am I working on in that case? Welcome to the Unreal Engine. Yes, the actual Unreal Engine editor itself, and this is the very next project that I'm working on. The next game that I'm working on, if I hit play here, is a first-person survival horror project. I know, very original. Once again, there's some elements that I really wanted to add in this game. The first, as you can see, is the ability to pick up objects. This is a little flashlight test object. A little box that you can pick up and you can kind of shine the flashlight, you can throw it, and it's the same exact object. There's a little material if you hover over it. Purple again. I really like the color purple if you couldn't tell. And so, yeah, the ability to pick up an object, swap to a different object, pick up another object, pick up a third object, pick up a fourth object, and there you go. You've got 4 different objects. And then you can, of course, throw them on the ground. Very cool. There's definitely some other things that I need to do with regards to being able to pick up and put down objects. I need to have a way that you can just place an object instead of just, tossing it. Because right now, you can toss an object, but you can't actually place it. Another thing is that you can't activate an object that's already on the ground. The other thing I was working on was the power system. Everything runs off of power in this game. If I press the button, it'll set the number to usually a random value, anywhere from 50 to 100, depending on the difficulty of the level you are playing, and it enables all powered objects, including, for example, these light fixtures, or what would basically be a light fixture. This is just changing the material between 2 states whenever I press the button. And over here is my pride and joy. You have a full monitor that you can interact with. It'll set your view right up to it, and then you can back out at any time. If you interact with the apps, you have windows that you can pick up, move around. You can close them down, you can open them up, you can move them off screen, and oh no, hold on, oh no, I lost my window. Just click the button again, there you go. As well as that, a full-on camera system. It's great. As well as that, I have already got the idea of a diagnostic tool, which you can equip at any time by pressing R, since that is going to be a very important function. You cannot pick up other things when you're holding this, so instead you have to store it for later, and then you can go and pick it up again. If you end up getting on here on the webcam, you can actually see it's a Nintendo DS. And yes, that is actually what I'm going with regards to the actual design of the thing. In terms of game stuff, there's a lot of details that I want to talk about, like the fact that this is going to be kind of based around Five Nights at Freddy's in some way, that you go to these animatronics, you repair them, and yeah, I'm actually finding there's a lot of things that I can do with this. There's an idea that I had for an animatronic that is unfinished, but its whole thing is that it's sensitive to light. So as long as the lights are on, it will not attack, or it will try to run into darkness. But it may also just happen to see you and stalk you right outside the light's radius. There's some ideas like that I have in mind, but there's also thematic ideas. I know that obviously the first thing that I'm going with is a pizzeria in terms of the levels, but then there's also a theme park, there's a warehouse, there's an office building. And a lot of this is probably sounding like, oh, well, you just have a bunch of random ideas and you're, just kind of throwing them in. I'm actually being a lot better about my ideas than the last game that I made, because obviously that first game was unfocused as fuck. I was just kind of throwing shit in and hoping that it worked out the best. This time, I actually have an idea in mind, I have a final vision, and I have a final product in mind, meaning that this product is very possibly going to work. But anyways, I'm going to call that good for now. Thank you all for watching this video. If you made it here, thank you very much. Go follow my Twitch. I don't know. Fucking subscribe. Like the video. I don't know. Do something. I'm gonna be working on this game as soon as I get done making this batch of videos. I guess I will be seeing y'all when I see y'all. Goodbye.